Okay, so I'm going to share a few more of my notes today on social psychological effects of heavy television usage. So this video will focus a little bit more on things like the impact on well-being and again dependency issues. Talk about predictors of unhappiness. So predictors of unhappiness are certain observable conditions which tend to indicate decreased happiness. So for example, financial worry is a very high predictor of unhappiness. If you're stressed out about your finances, again, it's almost guaranteed that's going to decrease your happiness. Other predictors of unhappiness are being single and poor physical health. As you can probably guess from the title of these videos, another predictor of unhappiness, which is actually roughly equivalent to financial insecurity, is reliance on television as a primary form of entertainment. So to clarify, that doesn't mean that anyone who watches TV is likely to be unhappy because of that fact. The studies were specific. They didn't focus on all television viewers, but only those who indicated that television was their primary means of entertainment. So first and foremost, what is your means of entertainment? What do you use? And if TV is somewhere on the list, no big deal. But if it's on the top as in terms of volume and interest, then that might be a problem. So this group of people was more reliant on television for their stimulation than on any other activity, such as inviting friends over, cooking, going out to some public event, or reading. So in sum, this group was TV dependent, to use, I guess, drug addiction terms. TV dependence, and not just TV, is the subject. So why is TV dependence such a powerful indicator of unhappiness? The answers are the same as with any other type of dependency. In psychology, two primary elements of addiction are tolerance and withdrawal. Tolerance means that ever larger quantities of the substance are needed in order to achieve the desired effect. Withdrawal means that ever increasing discomfort is experienced when the use of the substance is ceased. This creates a vicious cycle which destroys both the enjoyment of using the substance and the enjoyment of life in general. And so we call this cycle addiction. No one knows better than the television industry that viewers are building an impressive tolerance to that medium. Greater visual stimulation is constantly required. They're always, raising the bar, making things crazier. As soon as the viewer becomes accustomed to each new increase in stimulation, it has to be increased again to achieve the desired effect. Otherwise, it's boring. One result is that attention spans are growing shorter all the time, as the desired effect is harder to reach. This is the tolerance part. Withdrawal is observed when study participants have been asked to give up the stimulant. TV deprivation in those who have built up a big tolerance, used to using it a lot, has been shown to cause irritation, even anxiety, boredom, of course, and even depression. This all ends with a case of clinical dependence, which can be clearly seen from a study even way back in 1977. And the study could only find 5 out of 120 families who were willing to abstain from television for a month in return for $500. So $500, and only 5 out of 120 families were willing to try it. So consider that, along with the fact that viewers generally rank television as less satisfying than just about any other leisure activity. It's in terms of the satisfaction ratings that people give it, it's about equal to washing dishes. I'm not sure if that would still hold true, but that's what that study showed. So a $500 bribe was offered, and it was still insufficient to get families to give up television for a certain amount of time. When a major bribe is insufficient to get people to forego an activity that they don't really find that enjoyable in the first place, it's time to ask whether, what degree of a dependence has been formed. Reader's Digest has compiled a nice list of 17 ways to beat your television addiction. So, number 1 is give your extra TVs to charity. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It sounds sort of like telling an alcoholic to give his extra booze to the homeless guy. But regardless, if you're feeling charitable and you're tired of losing 2 months out of every year to the Kardashians, then, donate away and you can probably write it off on your taxes. Number 4 was throw your remote controls away. I guess you can try that. We lose our remote control all the time, and it does deal a serious blow to my desire to even turn the TV on. If I know that I'm going to have to get up and fiddle with something or take extra steps just to navigate to what I want. We actually went for a couple years without a remote, but that was before proprietary Fire Sticks and things like that, to where you can't really get by without a remote. So that one is probably checked off the list, but in the end, there are a million ways to decrease your viewing if you really want to try. You notice how the term family room is now an equivalent to the TV room. They're synonyms: family room, TV room. So, you could change that. You could have the family room that doesn't have a TV in it. That would probably have big consequences for family dynamics. Remove the TV from the room where everybody is all the time, so that you don't have this habitual turning it on constantly. So move the TV to an inconvenient spot, or just move the furniture so that the central focus of the room isn't the television. So just arrange things in such a way that room could once again be actually called a family room. Arrange things in a circle or whatever. Or you could cover the TV. We've tried this with kids, but create 1-hour sections of time during which TV is forbidden. So blocking things off. Again, that's a pretty obvious one. So I'm just going to end with kind of a list form here, because I've got a few more statistics left to share, things along those lines, some facts or trivia. And I'll just give some additional benefits or reasons that you could consider, or motivations to consider how you deal with your TV. So first is, just general creativity, mental function. The less TV you watch, the more creative people are. Money is an obvious one. It's cheaper not to buy all of your various channels and forms of entertainment. It's cheaper not to buy cable than it is to buy cable. I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. It's also cheaper not to have to upgrade to the newest video technology constantly, every other year. VHS to DVD, DVD to HD, 720 to 1080, and so on. Sleep is a big one. If you have trouble sleeping, then you're shooting yourself in the foot by watching excessive amounts of TV. TV is by far the number one activity of choice before bedtime. It's used to wind down. I get it. I do it. Unfortunately, TV doesn't wind anyone down. It's actually been proven to interfere with sleep, not encourage it. I mean, you can fall asleep in front of the TV if you're exhausted, if you're a kid, whose body gives in to exhaustion when you're tired and you pass out. But just because people pass out in front of the TV doesn't mean that the TV's to thank for that. It can encourage some physical relaxation, but it stimulates the other senses and creates really more of like a zombie mode, which is an unrestful state of inertness. Insomniacs spend a lot of time watching TV. That's what you see in the movies, actually, is the insomniac is always up sitting watching TV, going crazy. So the question is, do they watch TV because they're insomniacs, or are they insomniacs because they watch television? And it's probably some complicated mix of the two. Then there's the ADD issue, and I'm not saying ADD is because of TV, although I have a suspicion that TV contributes a lot to that phenomenon. The Center for Screen Time Awareness found that each hour of television watched by a child each day, their chances of developing ADD, or an attention disorder of some kind, is increased by 10%. So with each hour of television a kid watches, their chances increase 10% of developing one of those disorders. 4 hours of television each day would increase chances by 40%. I mentioned last week that television is mildly addictive, so as tolerance builds, the viewer needs more and more. So could certain cases of attention disorder actually be misdiagnosed cases of withdrawal from television addiction? Maybe, if that's how you're going to frame it. Maybe the symptoms are really a psychological result of not having the TV sitting there. So when you take a person with a highly developed tolerance to visual stimulation, then you suddenly place that person in front of a blackboard in a classroom and tell them pay attention to something really boring that is not stimulating at all, there's going to be a serious struggle. So if television deprivation can cause depression and agitation in mature adults, which it definitely can, then it's a bit silly to expect children to handle the same deprivation in a more controlled fashion. Yet this is what we expect with kids in school. And when reality proves that our expectation was ridiculous, then we assign disorders, prescribe medications. Speaking of medications, drugs. And not necessarily marijuana or cocaine, but TV is connected with other drugs, legitimate drugs, like the ones that you see on TV commercials every 2 seconds. So it creates a weird relationship with pharmaceuticals. No longer does the consumer have to live under the oppressive rule of his doctor, who will prescribe medications, according to his experience. Now we've got consumer access to the pharmaceutical market with freedom of choice, and now you can watch a 20-second commercial telling you which medication you should take for your depression or insomnia or arthritis. Here's a script that I had found from an actual pharmaceutical commercial. Do you know the warning signs for osteoporosis? Unfortunately, there aren't any. It's a silent disease with no symptoms unless a bone breaks. So, think about that as far as zero rational appeal to a bunch of people who are not competent to be discerning which type of chemical substance to take anyway, are just supposed to run terrified to their doctor because for all they know, one of their bones is about to break. Obesity is also an issue. Television calms and pacifies viewers physically, so the metabolism literally slows down during prolonged TV sessions, which encourages weight gain. So not only is television an alternative to exercise, it's the exact opposite of exercise. One could say that if you're exercising an hour a day, then watching television for 2 hours a day, you just canceled out your exercise and then some. As far as child development, play, in child psychology, there's a stage called parallel play. It's normal social development, usually around age 2, when children play near each other, but not really with each other. So that's parallel play. They may play with the same toy, but they don't really engage much. So healthy social development progresses towards actual friendships when the children begin playing with each other and not just around each other. So television represents a sort of regression backwards into the more primitive parallel play. It allows adults and entire families to go back into the parallel play mode where they're around each other and they're kind of doing the same thing, but they're not really having to actually exercise any interpersonal skills. So watching TV involves individuals who are around each other and might interact in a minor way, but aren't necessarily engaged in any kind of cooperation or human intimacy. It's a social activity that does not require a real relationship. And there was a whole section of statistics on, sex and marriage relationships. And as you can probably guess, couples that have a TV in the bedroom have significantly less sex than those who do not have a TV in the bedroom. So that should be pretty obvious anyway. So someone once said, watching TV is a lot like smoking. People know all the crummy side effects and continue to do it anyway. So I'm not sure that's really the truth anymore, because everyone knows, smoking is now socially considered to be this terrible thing. And I'm not sure people really do understand the negative effects of TV. So, you know, I think it's kind of the hidden epidemic, the hidden psychological illness that sort of creeps through society. And I'm going to end with a quote from The Manchurian Candidate. And it was where a guy says, there's two types of people in the world. There's the person who walks into a room and turns the television on, and there's the person that walks into any room and turns the television off. So, which one are you going to be?